Oh, good evening, everyone. I hope you are all well. Welcome to this week's episode of UKEduStories. We're going to be talking about coaching conversations and sharing stories from schools across the UK. Now, before I go into anything, I will say that Mark has had his jab this week, or yesterday, I think it was, so he's not going to be joining us this evening. Bukky will be joining us, just having a few technical issues, but she is joining us as a guest. But I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to introduce our wonderful guest this evening, the wonderful Kat Kinshaw. Hello. Hi, Kat. And the wonderful Amy Jeatley. Ladies, good evening. How are you both? Okay?
Good, thank you. Yes, are you?
I'm really, really well. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say this evening and asking you some fantastic questions. We've had a lot of people showing quite a bit of interest in this evening's show. If anyone who is watching, you've got any questions, stick them in the chat, and hopefully I'll get to ask our panel the questions that you have asked. So Bukky will, as I said, be joining us as soon as she can. Is having a few technical hitches. So I'm going to start with the first question. Can you just introduce yourselves briefly to the audience, explain your role and the context that you work in? So if we start with you, Kat, that'd be fabulous.
Oh, thank you, Zena. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here tonight. Thank you so much. I think coaching is something that's a real passion of mine, and probably stemmed from my general fascination with human behavior and emotional intelligence. So I've got a really keen interest in our use of language. But so at the moment, I've got lots of years of headship behind me and a bit of, interim director of education, MAT work, that kind of stuff as well, a bit of PGC tutoring, LA advising. Pretty much every role you can do in a school setting, I've covered. But actually, I think as life progresses, you realise, don't you, that you want to make more of a difference and a deeper difference. And there's something about spreading that influence. I love the idea that, when you step into your first leadership role, you're going beyond the classroom to influence a wider group. And then you step into headship and you're influencing a school. And then you step into some kind of MAT leadership and you're influencing a number of schools, which is just fantastic. And now I think I'm out there trying to peddle my wares, as in support people who want support, the people who want it, not to inflict it on anyone or enforce it on anyone, but to do it in a much more organic and natural way. And I find, for me, that's something that's hugely satisfying, and also it keeps me stimulated because I'm not churning out the same formula. All the work I do these days is bespoke. So I run courses, lots on leadership and management, lots on middle leadership. And then I also do some consulting, school advising, so people can just choose me to be their kind of ad hoc advisor. And then I end up having coaching conversations, usually with the people in school, because usually that's why they want some advice. So
are you someone who has... Do you have coaching conversations with people, even your friends? You suddenly find yourself coaching them.
Yeah. It permeates all aspects of my life, because it's bigger than, it's not a job thing, it's more of a purpose thing, that I think. And I think that's my fascination with, like I say, human behavior and emotional intelligence and that kind of stuff. And what a blessing to be in the education sector. I mean, it couldn't be more perfect for me. It's all about learning, it's all about people, and I love that. So so that's fabulous. Where I am at the moment.
Thanks, Pat. Fab. Amy.
Hello. I love, Kat, the way you said organic and natural growth. I absolutely love it. So currently I'm a lead practitioner in a secondary school. Been teaching now for 11 years. And in those 11 years, I've always been a coach, a mentor. For mainly in schools, the model is used for underperforming teachers, as we know, which is something that I'd like to challenge today as well. But my background, some of you who know me know it's the business sector. So I've come from a 15-year background in sales, business management, advertising, recruitment, and I've always coached and trained from there. So my coaching goes a long way. But like Kat said, it's that interest in human nature, human behaviour, and I think a lot of people don't realise the potential they have. And once you become a coach, or in fact, I say once you become a coach, I think if you've naturally got the instinct to want to bring out the best in people, you naturally go into the what conversation and how and what made you say that, and you naturally have these. So like I said, I've always been a coach and mentor in teaching, but the coaching and mentoring spans way back, ever since I can remember getting into work as well. So that's my background, and I also have a diploma in health coaching as well. So I do some health coaching on a one-to-one basis as well.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm going to welcome Bukky into the studio. Hi, Bukky.
Hi, Bukky.
Oh, and you're on mute now.
So the tech doesn't work. Schoolboy error. I mean, it's, you know, if it could go wrong with tech, it is with me. But it's great to be here. Hello, everyone.
Great to see you. The question I asked everyone was to introduce themselves and their role and the context in which they're in.
Okay, so as everyone knows, I'm Bukky Yusuf, and I'm using the fact that I work part-time 2 days a week as a senior leader in a special school, and I do consultancy as well as coaching. So I do that for the remainder of the time. I mean, I've been a coach for about 10 years, actually. I worked in the local authority, and some of the...
Oh, and I think Bukky's going to be having a few technical issues this evening. Are you there, Bukky?
I am.
Yeah, you froze there.
The screen said it's either a prompt to get off.
No, and she's gone again. Right. Well, we'll wait until see if Bukky does come back. But I am going to jump to questions because I am conscious of time and I really want to get to these questions with everybody. Kat, if you could just go through, you know, what made you decide to become a coach and how did you become a coach?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really interesting because coaching is one of those things that was, I suppose, relatively late in its introduction into the education sector compared to what Amy's saying. It's been prevalent in the business world for years and seen as quite a norm. And I think that, so I was an acting head, 2009. I saw an offer from the local authority for the heads in the county. Here's a coaching course, ILM level 5. Do you fancy doing it? So it was paid for, and I jumped on it. I was like, absolutely. I'd acting headship, put my MPQH in my bag, put my coaching qualification in my bag. I basically gathered whatever there was to support me in leadership. So I didn't really go into it with knowing very much about it. However, I had already been banging the emotional intelligence drum for a number of years. And I think for me, it was just about developing that self-awareness and then your relational awareness in the workplace that I could see was basically the cause of problems in school. And I always come back to the fact that, you know, we're there to serve, and we're there to serve those young people who walk in the door every day. We don't really have time or space to carry our own baggage around school with us. And that isn't to say that it isn't valid or it isn't important in people's lives, but there's a time and place for that. And I just felt that coaching was one of those ways of promoting professional dialogue. I used to joke about the fact that, you know, I wanted to be able to go into staff rooms in school and hear them talking about learning and children in a positive way, and not just talk about EastEnders or what they'd had for dinner last night. I kind of wanted to raise the profile of professional dialogue, and I thought coaching was a really good way into that. So I jumped on this ILM course. It was all men and me, and I was the little acting head, you know, young woman, quite not quite, you know, so not quite part of the team. I have to say I had to fight for my place. So I had to kind of get up and say, no, I want to come. It even started and I still didn't get the invite. And I wrote back and said, sorry, you invited everybody, so I'm coming. And I did it with some really incredible heads, actually, some real long-standing heads in the authority, which was a really nice opportunity for me then also to network with people. I was just at the very beginning of my headship journey, 2009. And these people were approaching retirement. So I had this opportunity to ask really kind of deep and meaningful questions in a coaching way, or have those conversations with colleagues who were much more senior and much more experienced. So I found that really helpful. And I did it with a chap called Andy Vass. And I think he might have been one of the independent thinking people a while back. I can't quite remember, but he's certainly written a couple of books. And I think, in fact, the coaching book I had from him was with Ian Gilbert. So it was quite, again, he was quite sort of prominent in the area of coaching. And I just loved it. I just lapped it up and loved every minute of it. So a long time ago, a bit by accident, but one of those things that never leaves you. Like you said, Zena, you end up having these conversations with everybody, and actually, sometimes it's really not helpful, is it? You don't. Some people don't want to be coached.
Oh no, I have a good friend of mine that's a coach, and sometimes she'll be coaching me, and I will say to her, "You're not coaching me now. We've had that session a while ago." You know, but I suppose it's something that if it's natural for you, and then suddenly you discover those skills on how to coach properly.
Mm-hmm.
Then it becomes more than just a passion, it becomes part of who you are, really, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Kat. Bukky, we've just been asking, welcome back again. I have moved on to the questions. But the question was, how did you become a coach? When, you know, what made you decide to become a coach, and how did you become a coach?
I became a coach about 10 years ago, as I said earlier, and it was an opportunity through my line manager. Because I did consultancy for a local authority, she wanted us not to just go in and be quite directive and support we offered, but actually create opportunities for middle and senior leaders to have a conversation that would help their development. So they steered the conversation, they owned, the solutions and things like that. And we were just basically a confidential and supportive ear. And I loved it. I'm not necessarily drawn to say like Myers-Briggs, but I did find it interesting a few years ago that with my personality type, apparently, or leadership type, according to Myers-Briggs, teaching and coaching are the strongest two roles that do that. And I love it for the fact that for me, it's not about me having the answers. And sometimes depending, like whenever I have a coaching conversation to see what type of support is offered, I try and discern, is it coaching where I just ask her questions and you come to your solutions, or do you need more of a guide? And once I've actually established that, what I love about coaching in its purest sense is the fact that it's empowering. And it allows the person who is in receipt of the coaching to tap into their potential and actually just bloom. So that's what I love when you see those wow moments, and it can take place over, like a long duration of time or not. But when that transformation happens, I think it's a really powerful moment to witness.
It's interesting because everyone comes into finding coaching in different ways. Either you've been coached by someone, or someone has said to you, this is going to really help you in your leadership journey. This is a really good way to good course to take. So Amy, can I just ask how you got into coaching, and how long you've been a coach for?
Yeah, so been in teaching for 11 years now, so I've always coached and mentored. My background in business, so when I was in sales, you're talking back in 1990 something, a long time ago. So I was a sales coach. I think it's something that came naturally. I used to train up people, but I fell into the coaching arena by asking those open questions to find out what the barriers were. Also as a business manager, sort of coaching other leaders and managers. So the interesting thing for me was in the business sector, you actually coach people for performance. So you're coaching people when they're maybe even at the top of the game. So you want to improve the performance, the peak performance. What I found difficult coming into teaching was that we have this coaching culture for the underperformers. And really, that's not what it should be. So something that I've been battling with, because schools don't have the capacity to actually have a continuous coaching culture where everybody gets it. So you've normally got one person who has like 20 jobs to do. And then looking at the strategic overview, you end up coaching those teachers who are underperforming. But if you had an overall coaching culture across the board that was continuous, then I think performance would increase anyway. So I enjoyed coaching then and did some coaching courses in business, and then coming into teaching, done some coaching courses through MPQML and certificate coaching. And then my master's, there was a whole module at level 7 on evaluating coaching and mentoring in a school context as well, which was fascinating. So yeah, so that's my journey in coaching so far.
Excellent, thank you. I've got a question. I'm going to start with Kat, if that's okay. So Kat, what are the key elements of a coaching conversation? Oh, I'm just going to unmute you.
Oh,
There you go.
Yeah, a couple of key elements, really. I think one is a willingness to want the coaching. I don't think you can coach someone who doesn't want it. And I think this is a bit like what Amy was saying. It's not a deficit model coaching, and it shouldn't be used that way. It should be used for your high performers to absolutely excel. And for me, that's what I think we've got a question around the common myths, and that was like my biggest myth, is that this is not a capability strategy. This is not to be deployed when someone is struggling. They need mentoring then, and they need a different kind of support. Coaching is really for your high performers to absolutely fly. So I think that's a key part of it. Can you repeat the question again for me, Zena?
What are the key elements of a coaching conversation?
Yeah, I think, so I would go back to, therefore, it being quite structured. And I think that's what you have to be mindful of and keep mindful of, is just that you need to have a structure to what you're doing, a purpose to the conversation that you're having, a pathway through the conversation, a beginning, some bits in the middle, and a summary and an end. So I think it's having a structure, but for me, it's got to be with somebody who wants it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's the key thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Bukky, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I loved what you said, Kat, about the fact that it's got to be purposeful. Otherwise it's just a lovely chat, really, isn't it? It's not really anything beneficial. But I think some key things to coaching conversations is actually making sure that there is enough time and space for the conversation to take part. It cannot be something that happens within about 15 minutes. You need to make sure that there's enough time for the person to reach their own solutions, because they've got to own it at the end of the day. And I think as the person who's undertaking it, some of the important elements are making sure you listen. So there should be a lot more listening than there is talking. The open questions are being posed, as I say, time and space. So pausing is not a bad thing either. Just allowing a person to actually think about the question is really good. And I think most importantly, not imposing your solutions. So none of those things at all.
Excellent. Thank you. Amy, did you want to add anything?
Bukky and Kat have said some brilliant things so far, absolutely brilliant. Thing I add to that, which obviously the ladies would be aware of anyway, is when, so the background in coaching comes from psychotherapy and counselling. So whereas counselling is very much about the past and then bringing it forward to now, coaching is very much about now, where are you now, and moving it forward with your goals. So empathetic listening, absolutely. But also we are very much feelings people, and going back to what Kat said about emotional intelligence, when we have the conversations with people, when we are coaching them, I think it's really important to actually identify the feeling behind what they're saying, because once you actually tap into the feeling or acknowledge the feeling, you open the floodgates to more potential for solutions and options, etc. So I'm not too sure whether Kat's nodding away. I think you'd probably agree with that, wouldn't you?
Oh, hold on, Kat, 1 second. Just need to unmute your mic.
I would definitely agree with you, Amy. I think for a long time, I've considered that our business is people and our currency is emotions. And that's what school is about, and that's what leadership is about. It's being that emotional barometer. And I think you're absolutely right. So I think there's something in that about being able to harness those in the right way and being able to kind of use them to your advantage. So I think, yeah. And I totally agree with you about being future focused, in the now, but future, looking at that desired outcome, looking at that preferred future, and a real sort of strong sense of being able to visualize and articulate what you want that future to look like. Again, we come back to that power of language, don't we? And it's the words we use shape our experiences. And the words we use become our experiences. And no matter what story you're telling, whether it's your story or the story of the future, the language that you choose to use will be a determinant of how successful you are or the outcome that you get.
There's a school in Leeds, Carr Manor Community School, and they have a coaching strategy across the whole school. So everybody in the school, all staff, all students are coached. They have coaching. It's absolutely amazing. But in your opinion, why should coaching be a school strategy? Kat?
Well, I think I come back to saying, we are in the business of people. And the thing about coaching is that, you're able to then, as Bukky so beautifully said, it's about tapping into that passion that you hold in your heart. We come into this profession because we care. We don't come into it for any other reason. We don't come into it for any glory or any, we're here to serve. And, for me, if I can get a teacher in peak condition in front of a class, then I'm really happy, because what I want is that teacher to be on fire and in the zone and in the flow when they start to teach. And if I can have a conversation that will help tap into their passion in any way and make them feel valued and acknowledged and totally like they have a place in the school, they've got a purpose in what they're doing, then for me that's my optimal kind of staff setup. And that, like I say, that's not disregarding any other stuff that's going on. People all have lives and all have stuff to deal with, and there's a time and a place for those conversations as well. But this is about empowerment. And I think that we're definitely in a reflective stage at the moment. Certainly, education's been turned completely on its head in the space of a year. Everything is different, and just how much time people are spending on just reassessing what's really important to them, and coaching is a beautiful way to be able to express some of that, and to have someone walk through something with you, just to walk by your side as you explain your thinking and feeling. So
when should coaching, when you're thinking about coaching conversations, and I'm kind of going backwards a little bit, but when is the right time to have a coaching conversation? Is it, would it be a line management meeting? Is it something that is put in every week, every fortnight? What if someone at the moment where you said, okay, I'll meet you on Monday period 5, but it comes to Monday period 5 and something comes up? So how do you hold that as a school strategy, or, as a long-term focus for a school?
Shall I jump in? I'll just briefly say, and then let Bukky and Amy
say.
As well. I think really importantly is it's a project. So because you're establishing some kind of desired outcome, I think you do need to have a set of sessions. I don't think it's a one-off. I think it needs to have some momentum to it. But I also think that there's a problem. I think there's a conflict if your line manager is your coach. And I don't think coaching sits well with line management or leadership. I don't believe that the head should be the coach of the staff at the school. I think there either should be peer coaching or external coaching, and I know that comes at a cost, and a cost of time and resource. I don't think who really in there honestly could be free with their line manager to speak about how they felt. And I think that's when we're talking about the fact that coaching is about establishing rapport and trust and confidentiality and all those aspects, because this is about people really touching their rawness and really tapping into those passions, like we said, they're real soul-centered stuff about being able to really thrive in the workplace and be the best they can be for the children they're serving. I just don't think it sits very well, but I'd be interested to hear what the others have to say on that, because I don't know, maybe it worked quite well, I don't know.
Bukky?
In short, no. If it's your line manager, the whole point about coaching is the openness. You've got to be open. You've got to be honest. You've got to lay the situation out so that a solution, there's mutual understanding, and a solution can actually be reached by the person being coached. If you got and interestingly enough, I've had coaching. So one of the issues I have in terms of myths, I know we're going to address it, is when coaching is disguised as basically mentoring or being told what to do because your performance is not as it should be. That really drives me absolutely bonkers. I absolutely loathe it. And this was an issue as well. So when I initially started undertaking coaching, there was a lot of fear because people, they didn't ask for the coaching. It was either their line manager who asked for them to be coached. And so the initial sessions were uncovering the fear, anxiety, who are you reporting back to? What's the purpose of this? And getting through those particular things. And I think that unless the coaching situation is, unless the person who's being coached requests for it, that's not really a coaching situation. That's something else. And I've had those type of coaching experiences, and you can't be authentic. You cannot be honest and open to share what the issues are. And it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be for fear of being, as though you're not being capable, seen as being capable of doing your role. And it may not be that. It may just be that you want to have a time and space to consider a particular issue from different perspectives, so that you can actually move forward with a particular solution. So if it's a line manager, if someone uses a line manager who you're reporting to is coaching you, I genuinely would not call that a coaching situation.
Coaching.
No.
Thanks, Bukky. Amy, I'd like to ask you a question. How could we expand coaching as a support model across schools? Oh, you need to unmute. There you go.
Okay, thank you. So expanding coaching across schools, I think, first of all, it has to be a priority and a culture-driven thing, really. That's the main thing. If I think about myself as a lead practitioner, I've got like 20 million jobs, and I have this habit of not saying no. So if, like, recently people needed coaching, I've already got two sort of trainees I coach anyway. Third person, I'm like, can't fit it in. So we're looking to see who can fit it in. So I think the idea is that if your school became a coaching culture school, and you were to train up, and you can do in-house training, train up middle leaders, post holders in holding coaching conversations, then it means that 10-minute in a corridor, 15-minute, or somebody comes to you and says, you know what, I've got this problem with this particular class, I can't deal with them properly. You can actually have a 10-15-minute coaching conversation, but it doesn't have to be documented. It doesn't have to be sort of emailed or sent. If you build a culture and create a culture change, to me, that's probably going to be easier in the long term than it is to take out that, right, we're having a meeting now and this is a coaching conversation. And if it becomes continuous, then over time, you'll find that performance will improve as well. So you won't really get the underperforming teachers, because everyone knows how to have that coaching conversation. Because most people can mentor. Let's face it, if you're a post holder and you are a performing teacher, you can quite easily mentor somebody who's new. So that isn't the issue there. It's about drawing out the potential that people have got, but making it safe, and having authenticity when you do it, and taking it a step further. Something that I did in my master's for my research, I researched a lot on co-constructive coaching. So that can be used with high performers as well. So you could get, like, say, a post holder who can coach well, coaching a peer, and then after a few coaching sessions, you could actually swap, where the coachee then becomes the coach for a short while, goes in, observes.
Oh, technical issues
Tech
again.
issues are there. Can I jump in with something as well? I think with regards to this, I think one important thing, like where you've got a true coaching culture within a school, obviously when we're on site, is the fact that they actually safeguard, they actually protect your non-contact times that have been set aside for coaching. So you can see then that they actually taking it seriously. And what I do in addition to that is, just to be in a safe side, because obviously emergencies always happen. I always try and find a location where it doesn't matter what the situation is, we can't be found, and we have unprotected, uninterrupted time.
Excellent. We've got Tracy, who said that coaching for all, including children, is a fabulous aspiration. I'm setting in train a coaching culture in schools I work with. Would be interested in the panel's take on instructional coaching. Bukky?
The first question I would ask Tracy is what you mean by instructional coaching, and I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that just to back that back. We have different meanings. We assign different meanings to different things. So Tracy, is it Tracy Bolton? I'm happy to have a longer conversation. Once I understand clearly what you mean by that, then I can actually provide some suggestions.
Thanks, Bukky. Kat, during the first lockdown period, how are you able to support school-based educators with coaching or having coaching conversations?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Can I just say hi to Tracy? She's a lovely lady. She's super.
Hi,
She's in my
Tracy.
neck of the woods. So Tracy, hi. And I think maybe what you're talking about is a bit again about the power of language that we use with the children. That whole, I always come back to that. I don't know. And it's like, well, if you did know, what's the answer? I say that to my kids all the time in lockdown. If you did know, what would the answer be? But I think there's something about the language that we're using, and I think that's what Tracy's probably referring to. And maybe there's a particular method that she's familiar with. But yes, because I think coaching, obviously, you can do. I've found not only are you coaching staff, but a lot of the time I've been coaching parents and children too. But to come back to your question, which was about what have we done during lockdown, or how is it, how has coaching worked during lockdown? For me, I've been supporting a couple of schools as a kind of remote advisor, or like an additional advisor. So I've been doing quite a lot of work with middle leaders, particularly on the changes to Ofsted and that the new curriculum sort of expectations. And I think there's no two ways about it that it's quite a substantial change, that quality of education judgment. It's quite significant for middle leaders. I think that schools have kind of, absolutely rightly so, the leadership teams like, right, we sort school, we'll clean it, we'll get the masks, we're going to run this show, we're going to report our track and trace, they'll do all that. And actually middle leaders, in your time, could you just go and check your intent statement, or could you just go and check your curriculum for the year? And I think it's left a couple of people a little bit floundering, and possibly a little bit, because again, you haven't got that kind of connectedness and joined up conversation. They can't just go to their network meeting and say, as they do on the quiet, to their other English leads, what are you doing? Can you share it with me? So actually the largest part of my work over the last year has been on supporting middle leaders with curriculum, the 3 I's, basically: intent, implementation, and impact. So I think there's something in that, and just again, breaking it down. It's something new. It's something that they've kind of been a little bit like, you get on with this while we sort out the global pandemic. Here's a little thing to keep you busy in your time. And it's overwhelming. I mean, it is overwhelming because it's a massive change. So I think, again, being able to, I suppose, talk through that with people, but also bring it down to very small steps. So I think that's what, is useful in coaching, is you can have this desired outcome of having something tremendous produced, but actually what's going to be the journey that we go along on the way? How are we going to do it step by step? What do you really need to know? What do you really need to do? Where should your focus be now? And let's just pull away from some of the things that aren't going to be helpful and focus on the things that are helpful. It's back to your Stephen Covey circle of concern and circle of influence. I mean, there's nothing like a bit of circle of concern at the moment. The world there's a lot to be concerned about. We need to just keep ourselves in that little, what can I do in my sphere to make my difference and to make me feel empowered and also, able and competent at what I'm doing and knowledgeable. And it's there. And I think people are sometimes a little afraid to sort of put their hand up and say, well, I've been a middle leader for 5 years, or, I've got a degree in this subject, and yet suddenly I'm having to write a curriculum, or I'm having to prove that my curriculum is being implemented. And I don't really know where to start. I don't really know what the goalposts are or the expectations. So personally, for me, it's been a lot of, I'd say majority has been curriculum work, a little bit of headship stuff, but just only as in supporting heads through a period of crisis, I suppose. But the majority has been around the middle leadership.
Thanks, Kat. Bukky, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just agreed with what a lot of what Kat was actually saying. Yes. So with regards to, sorry, can you repeat the question? Sorry, because I was so engrossed with what Kat was saying.
Yeah, no, it's like during the first lockdown period, how were you able to support school-based educators with coaching and coaching conversations?
Can I share, as I always do, but so because I'm engaged with lots of different things, face-to-face is not always an option in terms of coaching. So a number of the coaches, particularly through Women Ed in the first instance, I actually undertook coaching on the phone, which, believe it or not, works really well. I've received coaching through the phone, and it's been really transformative in my thinking and my practice. And also, through using technology like Google Meet and Zoom. So it's pretty much, obviously, it can flatten the I think the interactions, because obviously I think there's nothing really beats being undertaking coaching on a face-to-face basis. But again, it means that, as I say, if you're being attentive, looking at some of the non-verbal cues, like actually making sure you clarify particular points, just doing the things that you would do ordinarily, it still can have a strong impact. And I found pretty much no difference in, pre and during lockdown situations with regards to the coaching I offer.
Thanks, Bukky. Amy, there are some myths around coaching. What are the common myths?
Right, first of all, thanks for getting me back in technical hitches there. Right, so some myths are, so one of the key myths, if I compare the business model to schools model, some of the myths in schools are, I think ladies have mentioned it before, it's very much about, oh, I'm going to get coaching. Does that mean I'm on my way out? Or, it's that deficit model, isn't it? So there's a massive myth in schools that surrounds the fact that coaching is for people who are underperforming. And that's not the case, because like I said before, if you look at the business model, I've always helped coach performers. So it's totally different. So I think we need to challenge that myth in schools at the moment, that coaching can be for people who are performing, or people who may be stuck a little bit, who want that little bit of help and support just to get over maybe a certain belief they've got, or certain doubts and fears to move forward. Another thing is that people confuse coaching with mentoring. So I've been into schools and I've heard people being told to go and coach so they're underperforming, and I thought, well, do they know about coaching? Do they know what it is, or are they mentoring? And then when I had feedback, it's actually mentoring that they're doing and not coaching. So there seems to be in schools that it doesn't seem to be a segregation of what coaching and mentoring is. And don't get me wrong, sometimes if you're coaching somebody, say if it's teachers or say a middle leader, and they don't have the skills or the knowledge, and you've gone through the process of asking the open questions, in all fairness, you would have to switch to mentoring then, because you need to bring in the knowledge that is required to plug that gap in order for them to move forward. And from that point of view, your coach has to be quite skilled to know when to step in, to switch to mentoring, and very quickly switch back to coaching as well.
I'd love to have a skill like that. I'm pretty sure I've probably done that in my time, but actually having that, knowing how to do that and when to switch back and forth would be something I think a lot of leaders would definitely benefit from. Kat, you put your hand up there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I was thinking about this myths question, and I mean, I think, as Amy said, it's, for me, the biggest myth is that it's for people who've got a problem, and that's wrong. It's for your high performers. I mean, really, if you're going to get the most out of this. But there's something else that I've come across. Having adopted a coaching style and then taken some quite senior roles, that somewhere in the people's idea of coaching, I think some people don't think it's challenging. And I think that there's a myth in that as well, that if you're having a coaching conversation, somehow it's a bit soft. Now, I would like to challenge that quite happily, because actually I think if you're engaged in coaching, you're engaged in far more sophisticated language, and this is about empowerment and this is about performance. You don't have to bang people on the head with a wooden stick to get them to perform. But I think we still have a little bit of legacy there, which we're always going to have for a while, aren't we? That the way to get people to perform is to be unpleasant and to be hard-nosed. And I think, again, if you come at this as a woman, with all those lovely feminine qualities that you bring as well, that actually you're kind of missing the point a little bit here about how powerful coaching can be if you can't see how the language that you use in coaching is challenging. And it is challenging when you have those conversations. Yeah, Amy's going to chip in. For me, it's a myth that coaching isn't challenging. If that makes sense. Yeah.
And I think the reasons why you want to bring coaching into your school need to be really clear. Some people think, we need a quick fix. Have a couple of coaching sessions and it'll be sorted. And that's definitely not the case that I know of anyway. Amy, were you about to say something?
I was. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to add to what Kat said, people see coaching as soft as fluffy. soft and fluffy. I don't see anything soft and fluffy about having a conversation that challenges someone's doubts, challenges their fears, challenges their limiting beliefs. There is nothing soft and fluffy about that at all, because you tell me when in a person's life are they ever going to sit there and challenge it themselves? You know, I often have coaching conversations with myself. I have to, I have to sit there to work through an issue. I have to sit there and ask myself, well, that lesson didn't go well. What made it not go well? What was so-and-so doing? What did you do? It's that kind of self-coaching conversation. So, and I think really, again, I keep going back to the same point, schools need to change culture and bring in a continuous coaching culture, but the majority, there's got to be a critical mass that is trained up to have coaching conversations, so it becomes an everyday part of life. And when we do it with each other, we will do it with our students as well. And then it becomes a self-reflective process, because let's face it, most of the time we've got the answers inside, but I've mentioned before, at schools we run at 150 miles an hour. When do we stop? We don't even stop for breath, we don't stop for water or food, let alone thinking our way around things. So, coaching is done properly, very powerful, done badly, very toxic.
Yeah.
Can I add a point as well with regards to that? Because I think that the very important point was made about the fact that sometimes you need to switch into mentoring mode. And I do this as part of a contracting as well, because, I set it up about what coaching is. And obviously it's not about you imposing solutions or anything like that. But I check in as well and contract that if you get to a point where you really need, like some input from me, are you happy with that? And if not, there are questions you could even ask as well. I suppose they're quite close and they could be leading, but there are ways around that. But I think it's really important, because the ownership in its truest sense, from what I've understood and what I practice, lies with the person being coached. I think it's really important to make sure that they're actually clear about that.
Thanks, Bukky. You're all fabulous coaches. My question to you is, what do you enjoy most about your role? Kat?
Well, it's an easy one, really. I mean, I just love people. I have such a passion for people to be, to feel whole and to feel well and to feel purposeful. And like I say, if you've chosen to go into a career of service, then I just want those people to be acknowledged and to feel empowered. I think it's, Bukky said it beautifully earlier, it's those wow moments. It's supporting people to find the answers for themselves. We all know that it's the only way that we bring about change in our lives or our work or the way we are is when we have those light bulb moments ourselves. No one does it for us. It's totally, it's totally a personal thing. And if you can be in any way involved in someone's journey, just to, again, use that language skillfully to speak into their life in whatever it is that's going on, and just enable them to draw a little sense of, oh yes, I can do this. Oh yes, I can do this. And you just go watch them fly. And I love that. For me, even just as a natural, and my Myers-Briggs, as Bukky was saying, is on that way of sort of teaching and coaching. But I've done 7 headships now, and in all 7 schools, the deputies have ended up being the head, not necessarily of the school. And that honestly hadn't even clocked. I hadn't even clocked that. And I just thought, oh my, it's just about being able to show people that it's okay to operate in your, in your essence, in the leadership role in school. And I think that it's only through powerful coaching conversations that you really start to say, to grow in confidence. I think that's what it is. You grow in confidence, you feel empowered, you're supported, and you start to see results. I mean, you start to build that trust, and you start to build those relationships, and you start to see things really moving. Like I say, then you start to do it with the parents, and you start to do it with the kids, and suddenly you're in this kind of really empowered bubble where actually that's exactly what you want. We want these, people primed and ready to learn. So for me, it's about supporting people to find the answers for themselves. I love self-development. I love personal development. I love growth. I love it all.
Oh, I can tell, because you talk with such passion about coaching.
I
So it's so wonderful to see, and there are so many people. There's a few questions that people have been asking. I'm just going to go back. So Tracy, again, your lovely Tracy, is saying, I wish I'd invested in coaching in my previous role. Coaching for senior leaders should be an entitlement. And you know, Tracy, I absolutely agree with you. There's so many leaders out there that would benefit from coaching. And it's just something that will come down to funding, and people will think about time. But actually, once you invest that money and invest that time in something like coaching, you'll see the results. And then it's not necessarily they'll be really quick, but they'll be there and they will have a lasting impact, I think, if you use, coaching in your schools. You've got Sarah who's saying it's really important to empower people, students included, so that they can fulfill their potential. And that's absolutely true. I know Christina Mitchell, she's wonderful, a fabulous coach, and she says it makes her feel whole. And it's having that kind of feeling through coaching is wonderful. Amy, what do you enjoy about coaching? We've not got, I want to get through to the other questions as well, but I do want to ask you what it is you enjoy about this.
Okay. I think a lot of the things that Kat said, I'd agree with that. So rather than repeating it, one of the things I love about coaching is when you ask the open questions and you know that someone's got a limiting belief or a doubt or a fear, and you open up the forum or the platform for them to explore, and then suddenly they realize what it was that was limiting them, and then suddenly you see them light up because they've suddenly had an awareness of something, and sometimes they put that limiting belief or that doubt there themselves. But it's really nice when you see them just suddenly release it or acknowledge it, and once you get to that point of awareness, there's no turning back. You can't undo that. And with that new awareness becomes that greater expansion and exponential growth to whatever they want to do. So that's one of the things that's really important for me to see.
Okay, I'm presuming, Zena, because you're on mute, that you asked me the same question.
I did, yeah.
All right, okay. Two things. I love it when I can actually help a person look at a situation they've encountered from different perspectives, because sometimes that can lead to, I'd say, some wow moments, thinking, ooh, that's great, when you see the cogs going in. And talking about cogs, I love it when someone actually has, at the end of my session, says, my mind has worked really hard. And I think it just links to the fact that when it's done really well, coaching should make you think and think hard, so that you can then actually action some of the things that you've actually spoken about as well. So yeah, so they're the things that I do love, amongst other things.
I'm going to stick with you, Bukky. What have been the key things that you've learned about coaching or undertaking coaching conversations during the pandemic?
Oh, key things that it can help you to become a better coach. It can help you to enhance your own practice. I think I'm surprised to say that. I was surprised when I actually experienced that for the first time, but it can actually make you better in what you're doing, because I think it links back to something that Amy said about, the co-construction, the co-coaching, even though it's not set out that particular way, but it's part of a learning conversation. And even though the coachee is the one who's learning, who's doing the thinking, who's doing the hard work, in essence, you can still pick up things and actually learn things as well. And I think that's a really key and fantastic aspect.
Thank you. Kat, can I come to you with the same question?
Yeah, I think for me, there's something in your ability to listen. And I think it changes the way I listen to people. It certainly changes the way that I pick up on certain words that people use, again, about this power of language. And as Amy said, something around limiting beliefs. But I think once you're able to really deeply listen to what people say and really focus on the language that they're using, it leads you into creating another question that's just going to tap into the right thing, just to go, I'm just going to explore that a little bit more. Or can you just tell me, what you understand by this, or, you use this word and what does that mean to you? So I just think there's something around listening for me.
Excellent.
Change the way I listen. Yeah.
Fab. Amy, I'm going to come to you next. If you could just let me know who are the coaches that inspire you or that you look up to, and why?
Coaches as in people I've read about, or people I've had coaching from, or both, or anything?
Both, either or, yeah.
Okay, so when I was doing my MA, I did some research, and I remember, I think it's David Clutterbuck, was it? Some of his work I looked at. I do enjoy reading some papers, research papers on coaching. So they've got the journals on coaching, which are always interesting to read. Oddly enough, I've had some coaching from Bukky, which I've really enjoyed. Thank you, Bukky. I've had coaching, I'm having some coaching from Bernie, whether he's listening or not. He's on Twitter. So the coaches that I've had so far in the past, Patrick Otley O'Connor is another one as well. I like all their coaching styles because they very quickly will listen and assess what I need or where I'm coming from, and the language and the questioning is adapted to me and my personality. And I think that's really important with coaches. So I think, and I've had some coaching in schools, just coaching conversations with people who are natural coaches. So I wouldn't say there's any particular person as such or who I look up to. I certainly look up to people who listen well and whose questioning resonates with my resonance, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does.
You know, and I think that's really important in coaching, that you've got the coach and the coachee have to have a resonant match. If the resonant match isn't there, the coach can be absolutely superb on paper. However, if that resonant match isn't there, it's not really going to work, is it?
Yeah.
And something we did in business, so I've done in sales, I've done both telephone and face-to-face, and we were told that within 15 seconds, the person will decide whether they're going to buy from you or not. So you have a 15-second window to immediately build a rapport that you can take that further. And I think coaching is quite similar. Instinctively, you'll know whether you can actually work with this coach or not.
Yeah, that's very true. And a lot of, if you don't connect with someone, it's that connection. Without that connection, it's very, very difficult to have a coaching conversation or coach somebody. You coaching somebody or them being coached by you cannot feel authentic and cannot feel very real. Bill has said, beyond this great webinar, are there any coaching and mentoring CPD focus on the education sector that you would recommend? And then adding on to that, we've got, do you recommend any good reads to explore themes of coaching and mentoring? Kat?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was going to say, in terms of sort of my role models or where I've learned some good stuff, the John Whitmore book, Coaching for Performance. And I think he was the CEO of Barclays Bank. So it's more of a business orientated book. But John Whitmore's book, I think, is just phenomenal. I've got it on Audible. And if I'm going to go and either do a coaching session or do a training session on, how to introduce a coaching language kind of thing, it's very light touch. I will listen to it. I will listen to it in the car. I will listen to it over and over again. It's a really powerful book. And then I think in the sort of bigger picture thing, and in the slightly more maybe more modern approach, I'm just loving Tony Robbins. I don't know if anybody else is sort of tuned into Tony Robbins. Look, Bukky's there, yeah. He's phenomenal. He is phenomenal. And so however much American jargon or motivational speaking you hate, Tony Robbins is good on his coaching. I mean, I think he's NLP, isn't he? So he's got sort of neuro-linguistic programming stuff in his background. And I'm really fascinated at the moment with the link. I've got a young person in my life, 3 beautiful obligations, and one of them is having some support with mental health, and so we're going through a whole intervention, and it's all based on CBT, and I'm just fascinated. I mean, I'm lapping it up. I want to do the program because I want to learn it, but I'm also seeing the links there between, again, language, the thoughts that you're thinking is shaping your experience, the words that you're using, and I just think there's something bigger here, and something that just needs to almost become the norm in schools. We should have a school-based language that's around this growth, and that's got to be for children and staff as well. So I think that we're kind of moving in a different way, but I get excited about opportunities for change in education. I get really excited.
Well,
and I think that's, you know, for me, one of them. So I'd say John Whitmore as one of my heroes and go-to people, but also Tony Robbins. If I just need a bit of inspiration and motivation and a bit of a kick up the bum, you know, just to crack on, woman, come on, keep going, then I just listen to Tony Robbins for a bit and I'm there.
fabulous. Bukky, you were going to say something. Your eyes lit up.
Yeah, I lit up. Yes. So a go-to person, Andrew Gibbons. He basically, when I did my training, he's a little bit out there, but oh my God, he's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Still follow him to this day on YouTube and his website. A coaching book that I recommend. I mean, I actually had a recent LinkedIn post. I've got lots of suggestions. If anyone's looking for about at least 20 different books that are really good, please check me out, Bukky Yusuf on LinkedIn. That's not a plug. It's just that the list is there. But the one that I always share and start with is 50 top tools for coaching, a complete toolkit for developing and empowering people by Gillian Jones and Flo Gorel. I think that's the surname, that name is correct. And it's brilliant because it's got all the different types of models. It gives you an outline about how to contract, set things up, review, end the sessions. It's really practical and it's quite thick actually, but really, really good. And 3 coaches. I mean, I've been privileged to have lots of different coaching, but the 3 that stand out are Diana Asagi, Eve Warren, and Hara Lloyd, for completely different reasons, but they've all given me practical tools. I mean, some of the sessions have been really hard hitting and challenging because I had to tap into my self-limiting beliefs and thinking that didn't serve me. And it's hard to face up and admit to that and then move forward from that as well to have new narratives. But they understood what made it really powerful. There was no judgments, but they understood completely where I was coming from and really helped me move forward.
Fab. Thanks, Bukky. Amy, go for it.
Just a very quick one. So when this thing that I said about coaching and mentoring and not schools not distinguishing between the two, I have to say Andy Buck's new book, Basics of Coaching and Mentoring, I love his model because that is a model that schools can use that has incorporated coaching and mentoring, and you can practically pick it off the shelf and actually work through it. So I highly recommend that because it's brought a blend of the two together.
Yeah. I see it in the background for you, Zena. I can just spot it there.
My little book plug. I do this every week, so I have different books every week that I recommend people read. Fabulous. Thank you. Kat, if you were to advise somebody who wanted to get into to coaching, what advice would you give them to become a qualified coach?
Well, I think number one is have a coaching session yourself.
Yeah.
You need to feel that feeling of being moved and doing it yourself, not having it done to you. So I think, you know, get a bit of coaching, and there are sources, aren't there, out there that are for free. I know Women Ed's really supportive of supporting people in coaching, and I think there was for a while a DFE list, wasn't there, of people who could sign up for coaching. I know. Yes. People put their name out there. So I think if you just went onto Twitter and said, I'd like a coaching session, can someone show me what it's like? You'd probably have someone giving you one because, you know, it's a purpose thing again. So I think have a coaching session, obviously have a little look at a book, but if you're really serious about it, you need to get accredited. And I think you need to have something proper. So an ILM or one of those proper qualifications. I think you need that because it actually does put you through your paces, and you know, it talks much more in depth about, you know, the confidentiality side of things, and you know, your contract with people, and just you know, how you'd use it in a business sense or in a school setting or things like that. So I think, yeah, you'd need to sort of do some proper training, but that's probably what I would say.
Well, our fabulous Sarah, who comes most weeks to see us, says you're really making me want to do some coaching. And I'll be honest, I'm going to be looking at you after the show to talk through, okay, where am I going to go? How am I going to do this? I mean, I've learned already this evening, but I'm going to have a few more little questions I'd like to ask you. But I have one more question for this evening, and we've only got a few more minutes left, ladies. Where would you suggest for teachers, and school leaders to learn more about coaching and coaching conversations? Amy, if I can come to you.
Yeah, so I mean, there are lots of different places. So first of all, if you put the call out on Twitter, there might be some people who are running courses. So you could have a basic introduction to coaching if you haven't got time to do the full accreditation. And obviously you've got books that, I know, Bukky, I've seen your list of books, which is phenomenal that you've got for coaching. So that's quite a good idea. But really it's about time and capacity, what they've got available to them. But even if you learn the basics of having coaching conversations, and find out who can actually do that for you, I think that's a really important first step in the first instance, because they're not going to have weeks and months to put themselves to the paces of doing full coaching courses.
Exactly. Bukky, did you want to add to that?
Yes. So again, it's what you said about time and capacity. The Centre for Creative Leadership have got some very comprehensive and easy to use tips. So they give you a complete overview about what it is. And they've got lovely infographics that summarize the different things that you can actually do. So I'd actually say there, if you're hard pushed, but you're really keen to learn, that's a great place to start.
Kat?
Yeah, I think just something on culture. You don't have to go all out on the coaching model like a business can, but you can commit to being solution focused. You can commit to scaling your problems and saying, okay, or your projects even. Let's not use that word. But, you know, so I just think there's some things around that you can do just as a matter of course. Like I say, it's just almost like changing that professional dialogue that goes on within school. So I think that's a simple things you can do immediately. And just don't, you know, it's a non-negotiable. You're going to be solution focused. It's what it is. It's in the teacher standards. We can justify why we want people to have these conversations. At the end of the day, it's not too hard.
I've loved this evening. It's been absolutely wonderful. You've all just totally blown my mind. I think I'm actually now going to look into some coaching. I've said it for a while. I've said it to Bukky a few times when we've had a few conversations. I'd really love to get into coaching, but I think this is the little push I've needed to step into this, and because I know I would absolutely love to do it. So thank you everyone for watching and for your comments. Next week we're looking at preparing for the school return. Bukky and Mark will be hosting next week. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful guests, Bukky, Kat, and Amy. And, you know, have these coaching conversations. It's absolutely worth it. And if you're looking to find out more about coaching, I'm sure our three wonderful guests would be happy for you to get in touch with them. So we'll see you next week, next Thursday at 7 p.m. Take care for now. Thanks, everyone.